Hello and welcome to another episode of Be the Love to Awaken Our Souls. Thank you again so much for tuning in this week. I'm Stacy Musial.
And I am Brenda Carey, and we are your co-hosts and souls on the journey. We are on a mission to raise the consciousness of humans and the planet, and we need your help. Please spread the word to your family and friends and join us every week. Consider becoming a Patreon supporter or a sponsor to help with the operating costs like editing and the many hours we spend creating these shows with quality guests and content. And if you have resonated with our mission, support us in a way that raises your vibration to love.
And if it feels safe for you, I'd like to begin by inviting you to take a moment to get centered with us. I'd like to begin by inviting you to take a beautiful, cleansing breath in through your nose and out through your mouth, releasing anything that's keeping you from being present. And take another deep breath in through your nose, breathing in calm, peaceful, loving energy, and breathing out anything you are ready to release in this now moment. And take one more breath in through your nose, breathing in light and love for yourself. And imagine breathing that light and love and send it back to all of humanity, remembering that you always, always have your breath to come back to.
I am excited to dive into a popular topic of the month of February, which is when we are recording this. But this is going to be, I think, a topic that applies to whatever month that you might be listening to this episode on self-love. I don't know about you, but all the media ads that I'm noticing, whether that's flowers or cards or special dinners at restaurants, is all revolving around Valentine's Day, which is a very popular thing that we are seeing for the month of February. And although I am all for cultivating love in our relationships, whether that's a partner or within family, I feel like the main key that is really missing is self-love. And I know for many people, this kind of then follows with a big eye roll, like, oh, self-love, this topic that I don't know, it seems to be a little watered down over the years, but it's so, so important and it's concrete. It is an actual thing. And that's what we're really going to discuss today. We're also going to get into a little bit of the history of St. Valentine's Day, because I think that's important to see energetically, not like specific, like literally, but energetically, how these sort of darker sides of love and looking for external validation of love has come throughout thousands of years and generations. So this is going to be a really enlightening topic, and I truly hope you will really reflect on what does self-love mean for you.
Hmm. Yes, this is such a fascinating topic. I think it's so important that we do look at the history, because when we look at the history, we can really understand, where something has come from and why are we celebrating it, because the media is so good at putting things out and saying, oh, we need this or that, or we need to, buy candy or flowers or cards or whatever, which is great. I mean, to celebrate, but is it just one day of love, right, that we want to give? If we want to, um, give something to somebody, we don't have to wait for, Valentine's Day, but to recognize why we make such a big deal of Valentine's Day and how, we get kind of sucked in to, the cultural aspects of that. And, just to start out with a little bit of history, because I think, the Valentine's Day has been around since the 15th century. And so, but where did it start? It actually has very, very violent roots. And there was, you know, men would sacrifice a goat and a dog, right? And then they would whip women with the hides of these animals that they had just killed. And so they were, women would line up and wait for men to hit them, believing that this would make them fertile. And so, again, there's like this whole energy of needing to, well, wait to be, beat so that you would get, that external validation, wait for someone else to save you. And then, after that, then they would like draw names in from a lottery, put the women's names in the jar, and they would match them up with the men, right? So again, they're waiting to be saved by these men and, being treated like property. And this was like just such a harsh way to and just a depiction of how women were treated back then and how men, back then were able to, get away with this. And then how much of this is still in our DNA, in our trauma of like, how much power are we giving away to someone else in order to, quote, save us? I think it's such a huge
Oh,
question.
it is really huge. And when you started telling me the history, I didn't like, I felt this like laughing come up only because I'm like, this can't honestly be true. Like my brain couldn't even wrap around it. And at the same time, I felt like this stabbing pain in my heart, like women lining up. I just like that the thought just sickens me. So it was this combination of like, I'm kind of laughing, thinking this can't really be true. And at the same point going, oh my God, this is so painful. This is so painful. I like my brain, at least in this day and age, cannot wrap around that. And like you mentioned, the implications. Like, okay, that doesn't literally happen, at least not to my, knowledge. There are still very painful things like that do happen. And there's still the energy of that within our DNA, that like worthiness, the external validation that you mentioned, that I think still sits heavy within a lot of not just women, but men as well. And so I would love for our listeners to like really think about that in terms of generations. I look at my grandmother, great grandmother, things like that. I really don't know if they felt like they were worthy of love just as they were. They had to do something to prove it. Or for many women in particular, they needed to be givers. And so in order for them to feel validated, they had to give in some way, give care, cook a meal, whatever it might be, to find that love, because it wasn't in their knowledge, or they didn't see it around them of what self-love was like.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think, just kind of going along with what you're saying is that, it is in our DNA, right? And so it's a generational trauma. And I think each time we go through different generations, we can release layers upon layers. And I think we are becoming more and more aware of what those layers are as they are releasing through the generations. But it's really up to us to continue to honor ourselves through our own work and what that self-love is, and not expecting it from somebody else, and recognizing that if we do have a partner or we do have community, right? Because we can feel filled up by lots of different ways, but are we filling up our own cup first before expecting, and expecting, we can't expect anything from anybody. That's just, we can only, it can complement what is already there. But, when we go into, say, relationship and our cup isn't filled, we're just pulling the energy from somebody else, right? And so rather than already having this full cup, and then it's a lose because then the relationship ends up being imbalanced. And so it's so important to really learn about, what is self-love versus what is self-care, because I think self-love can be misconstrued as, all these things especially in our culture, we've been taught,
Yeah.
kind of, and I might use a really strong word here, but I really believe like we've been gaslit, in a lot of ways to, believe that we're not enough or we're not good enough without, all these other outside external validation products, fill in the blank if we, and so there's been this idea that we're going to be, selfish or narcissistic or, all these like selfish, like all these film like words that have been made to, you know, create this idea that self-love is wrong.
Mm.
And I think, yeah.
I think that's a great point that you make. Like it's overindulgent, that type of feeling. And I like how you brought up the difference of self-care versus self-love. And I think that can be a little confusing, especially if we're focusing our attention on what the media might be selling to us. Like an example I saw was like a couples massage. They had like a sale for, this Valentine's Day special. And nothing wrong with massage or couples massage or anything like that. But it was the idea that, oh, if I purchase this for me and my partner, then that will produce the love that I am seeking. And it's so tempting. I think you mentioned earlier to get like sucked in with that mentality of like, oh, that'll make it better because it's not enough right now. And that's that push and pull of like not enoughness. When we have that void within ourselves, whatever that might be, this is some really deep inner reflection work to do. Like, what is that void that I'm trying to fill with some of the things that I am seeing, whether it's advertisements or other people within my sphere that I think is going to fill that. But really, it's a personal journey. For me, self-care honestly boils down to, I guess, the things I find most precious. And yes, friends and family are one of those, but more importantly is time. And I know this doesn't sound very romantic at all, but I am in full realization in my wisdom years as I am getting older that time is limited. So I treat time with such care, meaning I say no to things that I don't feel like really fill me up. And I say yes to things that I feel like do bring in kindness for myself, honoring myself and the limited time that I do have. And it's just respectful. So instead of me saying yes to all the things, even though they might be great things, part of my self-care is sitting down with my planner. And this is self-love. Like I'm only going to do so much in a day or in a week, and that's showing love to myself, because I do truly honor my time.
hmm Well, I think those are all like beautiful and so important, right? Because if we're not honoring our time, how are we going to expect other people to honor our time?
Right?
Yeah. And so, for me, it's, that because I think it's really important giving myself space throughout the day to really honor, but then also like for me, I love, if I can feel love for others, right, which I think sometimes is a lot easier to do,
Sure.
and we're going to we can that love, that feeling, can grow and we can feel that, how can we, how can we bring that into our own self, right? And so building that. And so that's a practice I do is like really building the energy of love and bringing that within. So I'm embodying that feeling of love. And so I'm filling myself with that love. And that's been a practice I've done for years. And it just emanates. My being begins to emanate. And I feel that on such a huge level. And then I'm able to share that outward and really be present for others because I've already, I'm filling up myself with that feeling. Because love, just like any other emotion, is just energy,
Mhm.
right? And so we can choose what we want to focus on and how we want to give ourselves. And maybe it's, compassion. Maybe, I've had a rough day, but really sitting in that space for myself and allowing myself to feel those feelings and allowing that energy to move and giving myself that time and space to be heard. And
Mm.
so I'm listening to what I need in that moment. And maybe sometimes it's just some quiet, and that's so powerful for me.
Yeah, I definitely agree with having these moments of quiet. And that's some of the most loving time when I'm not trying to cram the space, whether that's physical space with things to do or mental space, just to be. And I love how you mentioned, how we would treat a friend. So within that space, how would I treat a loved one? And can I still gift myself doing that for myself with like no expectation in return? And I think that's where it can get a little messy with self-care. I think self-care is required. But oftentimes we do self-care like, oh, I go to a yoga or a meditation class every week. But oftentimes we're expecting something in return, not just for the joy of doing it. Maybe the yoga class is going to make me more flexible, or the meditation is going to, reduce anxiety. And those are all great things. Absolutely. And uh, and there's also needs to be I think, a component of, is this something that I would gift another person the time to do this? And can I do that to myself without any guilt, without any thoughts of, oh, I probably should be doing something else or getting more work done or whatever that or is for you, but to really be present with what do I need in this moment without any expectation
Mm.
of getting something in return.
Yeah, and going along with that, what are some self-love, practices we can do on a daily basis rather than, something we have to wait for, like, getting a massage or, going to that yoga class. I mean, all those things are really beautiful and I think we can, gift ourselves those things, but waiting for that massage, once a month or once every 6 months or however often, I think it's important to be able to provide those things on a daily basis. It's a practice,
It
right?
is. One of the things I love to do for myself, and I don't nearly do it as often as I need to, and also that I show the women in my coaching circles, is self-massage. This is an Ayurvedic practice called Abhyanga, and it's either, I mean, it can be done with dry hands. It doesn't necessarily have to be with a massage oil, but just like honoring our bodies with circular motions along all parts of our skin, especially in the areas where maybe we don't send as much love as we need to, like our bellies or our hips, where oftentimes we're overly critical
Mm.
of aesthetically what it looks like. But, and as we're self-massaging, we're saying affirmations to ourselves like, thank you, legs. Thank you for allowing me to walk to the beautiful places that I've seen, or thank you, belly. Thank you for being able to digest amazing food. And so it's such a loving process of touch, done in a way that's so respectful that I think oftentimes we forget. We forget that a sense of touch is just as important as our other senses.
Hmm. Absolutely. I love self-massage too, because I think it is such a beautiful practice, when you can give yourself that and you're not waiting for someone else. You're not
Right.
needing, that external touch. And sure, we all need hugs. We all need, that kind of connection. I mean, there is research, that it builds the oxytocin, the love chemical, right? But, I think it's also really important to recognize that we don't have to wait for somebody. We can,
We
and
don't have to
when,
stand in line and wait. Yeah.
right. And the thing is like when we start giving ourselves what we want to receive, then we
Mm.
actually end up, opening the pathway for that to receive that from others. And so it's this beautiful thing, like, taking yourself on a date, giving yourself this, experience that you want, not having to wait for somebody else, and then that's opening up the energy of saying, I deserve this. I'm worthy of this because, when we seek someone else out, we might be saying, oh, we don't think we're worthy, or we're willing to settle, for mistreatment, or, fill in the blank. So I think it's really important to be able to give ourselves the treatment that we want to receive so that we can, and, we show the universe that this is what we truly, truly deserve.
I love that concept. It actually is reminding me of a coaching session I just had with a woman recently, and she too was being very influenced by all the media exposure of Valentine's Day and finding a partner. And she had been single for quite a while, and she's like, I feel resilient in so many other areas of my life. What feels great with her education level and work and friendships, but really wanted a meaningful partnership. And so when we got down to the essence, like what does this partnership represent for her? And she immediately said, well, it's the safety. It's the security and foundation that someone has my back, even when life is chaotic. And I went, ah. So I said, okay, what if instead of seeking outside for safety and security, those things that this partnership is going to represent, what if we could do things for yourself that do that same thing, but you provide that. So like you mentioned, then universe and our energy gets the download that, hey, I am safe. I am secure within myself. And then automatically we start manifesting what we feel inside. And to me, that's kind of the essence of self-love. Like, what is it that we are like searching for, and we think we need it outside of ourselves, whether it's a person or a gadget or whatever it is. What is it within myself that I can cultivate those feelings and have it truly embodied? And we've talked about embodiment a lot in previous episodes, but same concept. And then universe goes, oh, there it is. And the people I do think that we need at the energetic level that we are at come in.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I was just, thinking about that when you said it, the embodiment, because
Mm-hmm.
that's really the energetic piece, right? Is, what the universe is sensing, and it listens to our energetics, right? And so when we can totally embody and feel, what it feels to be safe or secure, in our own self and our beingness, it's going to give us a different experience, and we're going to have a different experience and feeling safe to move forward in our lives, and then eventually, finding a partner that will match that with us. And so
Yeah,
embodiment is really key.
I think so as well. And so my encouragement to our listeners out there, whether you have a partner or not, is look to like, what does a particular relationship, whether it's one that you're in currently or one that you are seeking for, what does it represent for you? How can you gift that to yourself in a way that is truly meaningful, brings you joy? One of the things I love to do for myself, that kind of like oftentimes I am searching for kindness for myself, because I will admit I can be very self-critical. And I take things very much to heart. Like if I do something quote unquote wrong, air quotes here, wrong, or what it might be viewed as a mistake, I can really get down on myself, and there's this spiral of like self-defeatist mentality. So I look at myself like, well, what would I do for my kids, or what would I do for my husband? And I'm like, well, we would go outside and just be in nature and do our best to just move our bodies, do something playful. And so that's what I do for myself, all by myself. I'll go outside, go for a walk. If I'm feeling really ambitious, it might be a light jog, but that's really pushing it. I would say it's probably more of a good hike, and absorb the air around me and notice the expansion and know that I'm so much more than my thoughts. And to me, that's one of the greatest acts of self-love for
Yeah.
myself, is being present.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just really important to recognize, the things we do for ourselves and how we show up for ourselves is so important. And that's, beyond the indulgence and beyond the, one day. It's a practice of
Oh,
daily
sure.
recognition and being able to give it to ourselves. And, circling back to, what we started talking about in this episode with, the origins of Valentine's Day and, where that history has come from. And so, that we're not really too far off of that. And I think it's important that we get connected to our bodies, because that generational trauma, no matter if it was from, 5 generations ago, or, one generation ago, or, 20, we can still carry forward that energy. And so where in our bodies do we feel that? And really sitting with those feelings. And even if it is maybe that feeling of safety, or feeling of, the not enoughness, right? Which is
Mm,
a big theme in our culture,
huge. It's
and
huge.
so really honoring the enoughness that we already are. And even if you don't feel that yet, allowing that seed to be planted. So each time you feel that I am enough, and even if you, just say it out loud, and just allow yourself to begin to embody that, that's going to begin to create new neural networks in your brain and your energy system and your body, and it's going to build. But it's that daily practice of self-love and really connecting that to your body and where you feel that, and allowing that energy to grow.
I love that. Yes. Self-love practices are just that daily practices, being more mindful of how we are treating ourselves physically and mental, emotionally. And yeah, in our next episode, we're going to talk about, once that we've cultivated that self-love, how we can extend that to others in a meaningful way, where we don't feel depleted, where we don't feel like we're giving because we have to, or it's expected of us. So I'm looking forward to that continuation of our conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you for listening to Be the Love podcast. If you have enjoyed listening to our show, please share the love by sharing it with your family and friends, giving us a 5-star written review on iTunes and Spotify, or liking us on Facebook. Also, come join Stacy and I in our beautiful Costa Rica retreat. We are so excited to offer this November 6th through the 12th, 2023. We will put a link in the show notes if you are interested in enjoying an exciting, it's going to be so beautiful
Mm.
experience. We are going to truly awaken your soul. I hope you will join us there. I'm Brenda Carey, and as a holistic healer, I offer coaching and online programs to guide people in their sacred path to vibrant health. Check out my offerings on my website, sacredpathyogaandreiki.com.
And I'm Stacy Musial, a psychotherapist specializing in whole person deep soul healing. And you can find out more about my work, my book, and programs, and our Costa Rica retreat at awakenyourempoweredsoul.com. And you can check out our links in the show notes. And yes, it will be an amazing experience, and we would be so honored for you to join us. And please consider supporting our mission to awaken our souls with a monthly donation that helps with the operating costs of this podcast so we can continue to spread the love. To contribute, visit our Patreon website at patreon.com/Be the Love Podcast. And stay tuned for more episodes being released on Mondays at 5:55 a.m. Mountain Time.